My clay shrines, I start out with about 1.5 pounds of clay. Then I start wedging it. I do this, I flump it onto a cutting board is what I use. And I try doing it one way and then the other way. When I'm lifting it up, I'm kind of trying to wave it in the air a little bit so that when I pull my clay back down, it is sliding it. And it's actually making all the molecules of the clay get more intertwined, and it makes your slab built project stronger than if you were to just use a rolling pin. And it's more fun too. But I'm trying not to just pick it up and slap it down flat. I'm really trying to fling it and pull it back. And some of this just takes a lot of practice. But I think that it's cooler to throw your slab than to roll it or use a rolling table. They have slab tables for just rolling it out, and they're really expensive and they're cool. You get perfectly evenness on your clay, but I think throwing it is more organic. But here you can just you can pick up a little and kind of shake it down and try to get the weight to even out a little bit. And then once I get it pretty good, I'll roll over it a little bit. Normally your slab is a little bit thicker in the center and thinner on the edges. If you have really thin edges, you can just cut them off with a needle tool. But you can get it to where you can use most of your slab. And I'm kind of pushing down a little bit hard as I'm doing the rolling. Oh, don't come up onto the pin. Here we are, rolling and rolling, just rolling away. It takes a while to get a good slab. Still rolling. I'm still rolling. Still rolling. Next, I take my needle tool and a ruler and measure out the sides for my shrine. I made mine 3.5 by 6.5 just because it seemed like kind of a cute size that I could hang on the wall, maybe in the kitchen, and it wouldn't be very heavy. So I'm just marking that. I'm going to make 2 pieces that are exactly the same size, and one's going to be the front and one's going to be the back. And then I'm going to have little side panels in between. So you can mark yours. And I'm just trying to keep my ruler straight by trying to eyeball how to have it parallel to the cutting board that I'm using. But if you really wanted to make sure it was straight, a T-square might be a good idea. But normally if you're just like looking straight down over it, you know, it works out. Turns into a rectangle more than a rhombus. So I'm going to peel off these sides, and I'm going to use those sides in a little bit. So this is just going to be the top of my box and the bottom of my box. And then that part that I peeled off is going to be the side that keeps it raised. I'm stacking one on top of the other in order to cut the outside shape. I was going to do mine here with 2 bumps. And I just kind of eyeballed it, but then I thought, oh, it better make it symmetrical. So I made it go down to the 2-inch mark, so I marked the other side. And here I forgot to do the second bump. So that's okay. I'm just gonna smush it out and make it have 1 bump instead of 2. And so I cut through both pieces, both the top and the bottom on there. I'm just kind of smoothing it out a little bit. And now I'm going to cut the center. That's going to be the center of the picture frame. And I'm doing it very lightly so I don't go all the way through. The back panel, I want it to be solid. So I'm doing kind of lightly, then I'm lifting it up. And now I'm going to go through it again. I'm just using a needle tool. You could also use an X-Acto or any sort of dental tool that you have with your clay stuff. But I think the needle tool is my favorite. So now I'm just kind of smushing the sides and making them a little more squared and even and not jagged. Smoothing and smoothing, smoothing. Okay, now I'm going to figure out how to do my sides so that it's going to have dimension. And a lot of the strips I have are just going to work out. So once I pick one, I just make all the other strips the same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them all about 1 inch. And that's a good depth for my shrine. And I'm putting the walls on the sides of the back plate. You can also score and slip them onto the top. And you just kind of fiddle with it till you get the right size. This one right here was a little fat on one side, so I'm just going to press out the extra. And you don't want it to be too perfect. I mean, if you want it to be perfect, you can just go buy something. So you want it to look handmade and a little janky. When it's janky, I call that bespoke. So that one's going to work. And you could, depending on how wet your clay is, you could get all these pieces the right size and then you could leave them sitting out for a little while so that they firm up. You know, maybe kind of lightly draped with a plastic bag, and then they would get a little bit stronger. Just cutting with the needle tool. Just arranging. That one's a little fat, so I'm just going to flump it out a little to get it a little bit thinner. There you go. Oops. No, it's extra thin, but it's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. Now I'm just going to peel back these pieces a little bit and paint a little bit of slip in there. And I'm going to score and slip everything. Slip is just a mixture of clay and water. And some people make really good slip and they will blend it in a blender. I usually just take my little bits of unused clay and I stick them in a water bucket or a yogurt usually, and a yogurt cup. And then I'll stir it up. And you want just kind of a little thin mud is what it is. And it works with the glue. Now right here I'm using a kind of a serrated rib, and that's got a lot of little scrapes. And so what you want, your clay wants to pull apart from each other. And so what you want to have is so many little scrapes on both sides, and then the little mud called the slip as the glue in between. And you kind of smush it together. You can zigzag it back and forth. And you're convincing the clay that it can't figure out where to pull apart. It's just all married together. So I score and slip on both sides. I mean, sometimes I see people and I think maybe I score and slip more than I need to, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. There's nothing worse than picking up your piece and it all just falls apart into rubble. I know this because I've done it. So I'm scoring and slipping on all the pieces, and then I'm just going to kind of smush them together a little bit. Cutting off the extra. And again, if you let these sides sit out for about 30 minutes, they would be a little bit easier to work with because they would have a little more strength to staying upright. But you can go straight through as well. It's going to work. So I'm just pushing all that together. Convincing the clay there's nowhere for it to come apart. I'm also just doing a little thin layer of slip on the inside, just to kind of help that union. Just making it kind of nice in there. Now I'm just using my slip brush to kind of smooth that inside edge. I don't actually need slip there, but I just want to make it look nice and not bumpy. So I'm going to pick that up and make sure that it fits. And just make sure it's the right size, and I don't need to do any tweaks to it. And I'm placing to see if my little vase will fit in there. And it does. It looks a little small, but it's pretty cute. The vase that I put in there is a mini Tabasco that I got at a hotel with my eggs. And I had a tiny Tabasco bottle. And actually, my daughters really loved tiny stuff because they used to be into American Girl dolls. And so we couldn't believe how tiny these Tabasco bottles were. So we put some of it in our eggs, and then we brought them home and cleaned them and got the labels off with Goo Gone. Now, on this one, I cut a heart. I think hearts are cute, and it's almost Valentine's. So that's why I was kind of making mine into a little Valentine shrine. So you could also use a stencil as well. I just, did it freestyle. Now I'm also doing a little zigzag border that I'm doing around the edge of my shrine. I think I'm going to paint it solid, but I'm just adding the border to make it a little more fun. And these shrines could be, you could use it for different holidays. You could put different stuff in there. You could always have fresh flowers, or you can put little finger puppets in it. I got the idea looking at Mexican shrines that are called ofrendas. I think I'm saying that right, ofrenda. And the ofrendas are something that they do for Day of the Dead, where they'll have a little niche or shrine, and then they'll put remembrances of someone who has died. And I think that's really cool and special. So I'm just using these little bits to create more of my border. And I got one that I liked, so I'm just going to trace it. So I can have my little niche. After we saw that movie Coco, where they had Day of the Dead and the ofrendas, my husband got really excited and wanted us to tell him that we were going to have shrines to him in our house after he is gone. And my kids weren't too keen on it, but he has dreams that we're gonna have pictures and little, I don't know, niches full of peanut butter crackers, all his favorite things to remember him by. But I don't know. So after I get everything arranged, I'm going to pull it all off and then score it and slip it. And I try to score and slip both sides, so it'll stay on there. Yeah, I don't know. If your clay's really wet, you might not need to do both sides, but I try to follow the rules. Just really go nuts on the scoring and score everything, because you can always smooth it over. But if it doesn't attach, you're in trouble. It's good once you have it on there to kind of give it a little back and forth push. And that helps get little air bubbles out. There, I'm going a little zigzag. Yoink, yoink. So if you have air trapped in anything, it can explode if you don't get it really, really dry. There can be a little air bubble stuck in there and it will explode. One time I made this giant rabbit for my sister and I really, really rushed it and it blew up all in the kiln. So that's probably why I'm very careful now. Just make sure everything's good. And then I'm just going over the edges with my slip brush. And I don't have a bunch of chunky slip on there. It's really mostly water from the top of the bucket. And then also I'm putting some pressure on so that I get rid of those extra score lines from my overkill OCD scoring. I think you could make these with air dry clay, but I haven't tried. So this I'm using regular clay that I got from a company called Axner. And a lot of times I will get raku clay, even if I'm not going to do raku. Raku firing is a kind of firing where you bisque fire the same way, but then you, on the glaze fire, you take the pots out and put them into leaves or horsehair or different things, and they catch on fire. So the raku clay has a lot more sand and aggregate in it. It's kind of like the way concrete is. And all that little sand helps the clay hold together. It's just like grout versus concrete. When you have concrete on your sidewalk, it's got lots of chunks of rock in it, and those chunks are actually helping hold it together. So I'm just scoring and slipping. You might want to let your pot get a little bit harder before you attach this part. What I'm going to do, because I was just wanting to get it through in one go because I'm recording it, I'm going to put a little bit of paper underneath the flange edge of my top part. But usually, if I had all the time in the world, I would let my piece sit there maybe for like 30 minutes, just drying a little bit so that when I'm adding on this lid onto the sides, it's just wouldn't be quite as flimsy. See right there, you can see it's pretty soft. It's gonna work, but it could sag when you do it really soft like that, because there's nothing holding up. It's kind of like a picture frame. There's nothing holding up the inner edge right now. So with it being so soft, it could end up sagging a little bit. Now I'm using my thumb to press down the edge. And then whenever I'm working with clay, I try to have a counterbalance if I can. So I'm putting one finger on the inside to try to hold it strong, while I'm using my outside finger to press it together and smush it. And then once you can make sure it's sealed, then you can kind of go back and shape it and make sure it still looks cute. Now I would let it dry for about a week, and then I would bisque fire it in the kiln. I am using Spectrum low fire glazes on this, and I'm going to paint. I used Cadet Blue, Rose, and Strawberry. So I'm doing the Cadet Blue on the inside, and I'm going to paint 3 3 layers. So the Cadet Blue is really watery, so I'm doing it pretty thickly here. And then actually you're supposed to do 3 layers, but it's almost like I did 4. Just because you kind of get a feel for how thick it is, and this one just came out kind of watery. And I don't know if it's just this tub or if it's the different color. And it's kind of a pain to get it in there, but I think it's going to be worth it. And I'm a very messy painter, so I'm getting it all over the place. So, instead of going slowly, I'm going to have to go back with a sponge and wipe off all these edges that I'm accidentally turning blue. But I'm making this blue and pink and with a strawberry red heart, because it's my Valentine's shrine of love. So I can put cute little things in there for my daughters and my husband in the kitchen. Just working on painting it. I made one shrine before, and I tried to have a little ledge to hang it, and it didn't work that well. So what I'm going to do on this is I'm just going to glue a zigzag hook that I got from Lowe's, and I'm going to glue it on the back with E6000. So yeah, I'm just trying to get that blue in there. It takes longer than you'd think. I usually, when I'm doing glazes, I do 1 layer and then I go ahead and do the 2nd layer. And then I stop and take a little break. And then I do the 3rd. Whenever I try to do 3 in a row, it doesn't stack. And you get a lot of lines. And here I am trying to clean off all my mistakes. And I'm just using a clear brush and clear water. Also, I'm just becoming okay with the fact that it's going to have some blue there. If I make it too perfect, I'm not really having fun. So, it's bespoke. I'm actually making it so much messier trying to clean it. But, I guess pink and blue, when they get together, might turn out kind of purplish. So maybe that will be good anyway. More water. More water. Oh. Can we fix it? No, we just got more glaze. Just picked up more glaze and put it in the corner there. Yeah. And there. Some more. So I hope you're enjoying painting yours. And either you're okay with being messy too, or maybe you're a little more attentive to detail. One of the things that really helps is when you're painting is if you put your elbow down. I think growing up, my parents would always get mad at us for having our elbows on the table when we were eating. But when you're making art, having your elbows on the table is a good thing. Because when I'm just painting and my elbow's out in the air, it can get kind of shaky. So having your elbow either on the table or braced in against your rib cage can help you paint a little more steadily. Also, all this water that I'm using does not matter. It soaks up. Once the clay has been fired, it's so porous. It's just like a terracotta pot. So it just soaks right up. And you can glaze right on top of the wet surface. It doesn't matter. smoothing it out. When I learned how to do ceramics in Birmingham, the teachers that I was working with, they always had about 5 colors, and they would have dip glazes. So you could dunk your pieces in it, but you couldn't have all these details. So when I just started setting up my ceramic studio at my house, I didn't know how to make the dunk glazes, so I ended up buying all these pots of these mostly Spectrum glazes. I have a few Laguna glazes and a few Mako glazes, and then one Speedball underglaze. But now it's like I'm used to it, and I enjoy having all these colors to choose from. But it is more work because you have to, when you have the small tubs, you have to paint 3 layers. The dip glazes are thicker, so you just do 1 dunk and that's it. But, it's just a solid color. So I don't know, maybe I'll get into it. You have to, if you're making dip glazes, you have to wear a gas mask and do it outside and do it with a drill attachment. And then you have to store it. So it's kind of next level. Now I'm painting the final color, the rose, which is kind of a light cantaloupe pink. And a lot of times when I'm trying to get the color right up to it, if I don't have exactly the right brush, I will bring my paintbrush close to the edge, and then I will kind of shimmy it up to the border where I need to get it. I use flat brushes a lot, especially when I'm using glazes. I just find them easier to control, and it's almost like using a pencil. Whereas a round is good for watercolor because it's got a tip on it, but as soon as you get them involved in glazes, you lose that tip. And so I just think flats are the best. So I'm just doing 3 coats of the rose color, and I'm doing it on top of where I spilled the blue, and hopefully it mixes into something good. But a lot of times with the glazes, it'll just cover up what's underneath. I'm going to do 3 coats of it, and here I'm shimmying it up to that edge. Oh yeah. If it ends up too thick, it's probably okay. When it's dry, if it really looks chunky, you can just kind of brush it off. You can get it too thick and then the glaze will bubble. But usually it can kind of handle 4 coats. You're supposed to do 3, and a lot of times I do 2. But if it gets too thick, it's normally okay. When I get it finally glazed with 3 coats on everything, I'm going to let it dry for a minute and then check to make sure the bottom is clean so it doesn't stick to the kiln. And I will fire it to cone 05, or following the directions on the glaze packet. Yay! Here is my finished Valentine shrine. I love it. I hope you do too. Thanks for watching.